Welcome to another manga recap. Just like all my videos, this video was heavily audio mixed for headphones. Use headphones for a better experience. Today's video will cover the most cute and wholesome manga I have ever read. All the details about this manga will be pinned in the comment section. Without further ado, enjoy the video. Also, special thanks to my patrons. He was looking at her, mesmerized by her beauty, and even more, she was in the exact same situation. Someone once said that an ill-fated relationship is still a fated relationship. Both of them were in shock seeing each other after such a long time. His name was Dionel, but more importantly, what was he doing there? After asking that, she stopped talking for a second, just looking at him. Today was a monumental day since she entered the novel. The novel was called In Love with a Monster Prince, or Monster Prince for short. Dionel was called the Monster Prince for switching back and forth from a beast to a human. All this happened after being cursed by Kalia, a wicked witch. Today was the day that he would receive a true love's kiss from the female protagonist. With that happening, his curse would be lifted, and after having the curse lifted, he looked so charming. Her original plan was to just secretly check to see if his curse has been lifted. After doing so, she planned to go back home like a good girl. She didn't want to cross paths with him at a time like this. That was because Dionel left her 13 years ago. A bit shy, she tells him that it's been so long. How have you been? He only replied by calling out to her name. She asked her to look at him in the eye. Even more confused, she raises her head, looking right towards him. He actually looked like a prince from a story. Was it because he was the male protagonist? He grew up to be such a handsome young man. He looked completely different from when he was little. This is how Dionel looked 13 years ago. A bit annoyed, she started to wonder herself why was she suddenly thinking about her past. She just barely managed to get over it. She can't change what happened, so she should just leave quickly. Again, stumbling her words, she tells him that she was done there, so she will be going now. Hearing that, Dionel started to twitch. He suddenly approaches her, grabbing her by the hand. Where was she planning to go? Where was she going this time? Was she planning to leave him behind again? She just looked at him and blinked, a bit confused. He tells her that he wanted to go with her. Go with her? What? He suddenly hugs her and tells her that it didn't even matter where she was going. He just wanted to be together with her. He was even begging her, he didn't want her to leave him behind again. Leave him behind? Wait. What in the world was he talking about? He was the one who left her. Smiling a bit, he tells her that she was the one that said that she was going to feed, house and eat him up if he did as she said. That was the only thought he had since she deserted him. While pulling her even closer to him, he asks her if it wasn't about time that she ate him up. Before we get our happy ending, let's start with the beginning. 14 years ago, she entered Monster Prince. It was the very novel that she used to leave hate comments on because it was full of too many cliches. It didn't take long before she realized this. The reason was because she looked into the mirror and she looked exactly like Daisy from the cover illustration of Monster Prince. Dirty silver hair and cloudy blue eyes. Over than the fact that she looked younger than Daisy in the illustration, Daisy was the adopted daughter of Kalia, the witch, and she tormented Dionel along with Kalia. She could clearly remember images of Daisy tormenting him. What does she mean by torment, you ask? Kalia kidnapped the young prince Dionel and cursed him so that he turned back and forth from a monster to a human. After that, she exploited him for magical energy. Dionel exuded more magical energy after eating poisonous plants, so Kalia made him eat them before she extracted the magic out of him. She always made Daisy feed him the poisonous plants. But Dionel turned into a beast after eating them and went out of control. However, Daisy was unable to go against Kalia's orders. She had to keep feeding him even when she was trembling in fear. No one thought that Dionel was a prince, since he had been bewitched and lived a lonely life. Eventually, Dionel disappeared from everyone's memories. Dionel spent each day in pain, until one day, through a twist of fate, he met the female protagonist. She wasn't afraid of Dionel, even though he kept changing form. Rather, she tended to his wounds. Dionel was touched by her kindness and he opened up his heart to her. Of course, naturally, they fell in love, and soon after, they sealed their love with a kiss. Dionel's curse was lifted by her kiss. He then returned to the imperial castle and was crowned as the prince. The first thing he did after becoming the crown prince was, understandably, to have Kalia executed. Of course, her daughter Daisy was killed along with her. However, Daisy didn't do all those things because she wanted to. Rather, she was a victim of Kalia's abuse as well. The reason Kalia adopted Daisy in the first place was because she needed a specimen to test how to extract magical energy out of someone. Long story short, since she possessed Daisy's body, she was screwed. In a panic, she starts knocking at the door. She wanted to go home. She won't leave hate comments ever again. Hearing the noise, somebody was slowly walking towards the door. The door bursted wide open. Because of the force, Daisy was knocked down. She told her to stay quiet. Her name was Kalia. She was the witch from the story. As expected, she was absolutely gorgeous, just like the novel described her. But of course, now was not the time to be in awe by her beauty. Trembling, she asked the witch to let her out. She even called her mother. Mother? Hearing this, the witch suddenly became very angry. She must have lost her mind. Oh right, Kalia didn't treat Daisy like her own daughter. Daisy was merely a subject for her experiments. She instantly bowed down, apologizing that she called her mother. Okay, then what should she call her? She was sure that she already told her about this. She was panicking. What if Daisy called Kalia again? She had to think. A bit annoyed, Kalia says that she was waiting. With her voice trembling, she guesses that the right answer was ma'am. Hearing that, the witch was totally enraged. Totally terrified because of the situation, it was clear to her now. She was seriously screwed now. A whole day has passed and she was still knocked out. After a good couple of hours, she slowly opened her eyes. Her head was hurting. What in the world happened? There was a strong gust of wind after she called her ma'am. But after that, she didn't remember anything. Did she pass out? She couldn't believe that she blew such a small kid away to the point where she passed out. That was way too harsh. A second later, she remembers a very useful information. Daisy called Kalia Miss Witched. She just remembered now. What was the difference between Miss and Ma'am? She didn't see what was the big deal. Right in that moment, the door suddenly opened again. Of course, she jumps right back on her feet hearing that. It was the witch who was slowly getting closer to her again. Shoo! Did she finally wake up? Well, yes, she did. This time, she addressed her with Miss Witch. Smiling a bit, the witch said that it seemed that she was in her right mind today. What a relief. Miss Witch was right. She was going to the capital today. No matter how stupid she was sure that she remembered this, right? Anyway, she throws her some sort of a bag. What was this? What did she think? It was poisonous plants. She better not forget to feed it to that brat in the abandoned house. Hearing this, she started to panic a bit. Seeing that, the witch got annoyed instantly. She better stop fidgeting around and get on with it. She was going to meet Gelfus today, but now she was in a bad mood because of her. With that said, she slams the door and leaves the house. Kalia's lover Gelfus Viscon Orsinium. Gelfus was the son of a royal concubine that had come from another country. He was born with only very small amount of magical energy. In Orsinium, power was dependent on how much magical energy you had. So Gelfius was considered to be a useless crown prince. That crown prince that no one cared about. That crown prince was the perfect prey for a witch that was blinded by greed. 9 years ago, when Gelfus was 14 years old, he suddenly collapsed onto the ground without knowing where he was. Out of the blue, somebody asks him if he needs her help. When asking who was there, he noticed a gorgeous girl who was looking at him. This was Kalia 9 years ago. Kalia knocked Gelfus out while he was taking a walk through the forest, then acted like she coincidentally crossed paths with him and treated him with care. A while later, he told her that he fell in love with her the moment he saw her. He really wanted her to come to the palace with him. She replies by saying that she loves him as well, but she can't go there. The reason because of that was the fact that she was a witch. She was sure that he was aware that they hunt witches in Orsinium. However, when he becomes the emperor, she thought that she will be able to go to the palace, right? A bit sad, he replies that he can't become the emperor, he doesn't have enough magic. Smiling at him, she tells him that she will try to find a way. He had nothing to worry about. He was going to become the emperor if he will do as she says. However, right after that, the empress unfortunately became pregnant with Dionel, who had an incredible amount of magical energy. Dionel was a pain in the neck for Kalia. She's been planning on attaining tremendous power and control over the empire using Gelfus. Therefore, she kidnapped Dionel as soon as he was born and cursed him to turn into a beast. What a horrible person. She mustn't torture the male protagonist as Kalia ordered her to. She must befriend the male protagonist and avoid death no matter what. It will take several days for Kalia to return from the capital, so this was her opportunity. She was going to meet with Dionel and become friends with him. But in any case, she can give him the poisonous plant like Daisy does in the original novel. It will be easier to become close to him if she gives him something to eat. Was there anything that she could give him? After searching for a bit, she notices something interesting. She could use this bag to... A second later, she found something amazing. A piece of bread. It looked like it was old and super stale, but it was better than nothing. She was a bit concerned that she had to pass by them if she was going to meet with Dionel. Right in front of her, 3 dogs were watching her. And they were not normal dogs, each dog had 3 heads. She wondered if she could really make it past them. Those Cerberuses don't listen to even Kalia. She will be able to chase them away if she sprays the poisonous perfume in there. But if she does that, she won't be able to go to Dionel. She was sure that she will be making him suffer as well. This perfume was made with poisonous plants that animals absolutely hate the smell of. Even so, the Cerberuses were absolutely terrifying. She felt like she could end up dying before she met Dionel, so she had no choice. She was going to spray just a tiny bit. While trembling in fear, she knew that she was almost there. She was going to meet the main character soon. Even so, the dogs were getting angrier and angrier. What the heck, why was it suddenly barking at her? While running away, she trips because of a rock and falls down. When falling down, she fell right into a puddle of water. The poisonous perfume was going to be washed away. She panicked, knowing that she was probably going to die. She didn't want to be eaten by Cerberus. She haven't even met the prince yet. Out of nowhere, the dogs, instead of biting her, start licking her. She takes a second to realize what was going on. The dogs were actually really friendly. What was going on? Even more, one of the heads dropped an acorn on her hand. When she moved the acorn to the left, the dogs moved to the left. When she did it to the right, the dogs looked to the right. They must have wanted her to play with them. they were as friendly as possible. Alright then, it was clear as day what she needed to do. She was going to play with them until they pass out. And just like that, they started playing for hours and hours. By the time they were done playing, it was nighttime. After she fell asleep, Cerberus made sure to protect her. This is so cute, I swear. Was she planning on using this child this time? It was not going to work. The main character was already watching her. There was no way that he was going to fall for something like this. For a good couple of minutes, he just sat there and watched her sleep. A second later, he felt the presence of something watching him from behind. The monster that was watching him started flying right towards him. Luckily, he managed to react in time and turned around. Even more, he quickly kneeled and grabbed a rock that was sitting nearby. He instantly got up and got ready to shoot the rock at the monster. He threw it with such force that the bird got basically shot. Seconds after, it fell onto the ground lifeless. How annoying. Why was it a monster that he couldn't even eat? What he didn't expect was to get a reaction from the girl who was sleeping. A bit confused, he turns around towards the direction of the sound. She was not sleeping anymore, and even more, she was in awe. She was so cool. You could see it in her eyes that she was amazed. Later, when they arrived at the cabin, she started to apologize. It was her fault, but she swore that she never did any of that stuff because she wanted to. The first thing that she needed to do in order to survive was beg for forgiveness. She bows down, saying that she was sorry and she didn't expect him to forgive her. Even so, she wanted him to give her a chance. And quickly after, she starts looking in the bag. The second thing that she needed to do was to give him food. With a bright smile on her face, she tells him that she brought him food. This was for him. She was sure that the formula that says whoever gives you food must be a good person will work in this world as well. That's what she thought, but the prince told her to get that away from him. Come on, she knew it was a bit stale, but it'll be alright if he eats it with some water. At this point, the boy was getting angrier and angrier. Hitting the bread out of her palm, he yells again that he said to get it away. The bread was so hard that it bounced a couple of times on the ground and then it rolled away. She was so surprised that she didn't know how to react. She almost started to cry. She brought this bread for him. So what? And he told her to put it away. She was so disappointed. She was hungry as well, but still she didn't eat it because she wanted him to have it. Well, it was her fault. Her fault. Why? The boy was so angry that he started to twitch around. Seeing this, she was concerned and asked him what was wrong. He was mumbling. He told her to put it away, but she didn't listen. At this point, she realized that something was wrong. He wasn't about to transform into a beast, was he? She remembered that it said in the original novel that he turned into one when he got stressed. With his voice trembling, he tells her to run away. He was really turning into a beast. Did her giving him bread stress him out that much? Why? The boy yells at her again, telling her to run away. Well, she wanted to run away, but her legs were giving out. Shortly after, he actually transformed into a beast. She falls onto the ground screaming. The monster was getting closer and closer. But when she opened her eyes, she realized that the monster wasn't exactly what she expected. He jumped on her, but he was basically just a cute cat. It was just a baby. She starts laughing a bit, saying that his canines are still so tiny. It looked like she got scared for nothing. Out of the blue, he actually bit her hand. Just like mother cats do with kittens, she pinched him by the back of his head. She even tells him that he will get in trouble, he can't just bite people. A bit shocked and confused, he actually releases the bite. That wasn't so hard, it looked like they won't have much of a problem in the future either. That's what she thought, but she got startled by the sudden noise that was coming from the monster. The once small kitten turned into something the size of a lion. She realized that he just got bigger than before. And of course, he was getting ready to strike again. While screaming, she starts running around in the room and the monster was chasing her. A scene suddenly flashed through her head. The angrier Dionel got, the bigger he became. This was annoyed Dionel. This was angry Dionel. And this was enraged Dionel. The angrier he got, the more ferocious of an animal he turned into. Kalia and Daisy tormented him every time they saw him. So the Dionel that they saw was the one that had only his wild instincts left in him. Why was she remembering such an important information only now? She instantly realized that she stumbled upon the bread. In that moment, Dionel lunges towards her, getting ready to attack. She didn't know what to do, so she just picks the bread and smashes it right into his face. There was a moment of surprise and confusion for both of them. Poor Dionel literally got KO'd with one shot. How in the world should she react to this? The fire was still burning in the stove, and of course he was taking full advantage of this. When was the last time when he felt so warm? Somebody suddenly starts talking with him. He must be cold. Hearing that voice, he instantly opens his eyes. It was Daisy, who was doing her best to keep him as warm as possible. Of course, he got scared and instantly jolted back. Oh, he was awake. Well, he was, but what was she doing? Even more, was she the one that lit up the fireplace? Well, he couldn't light it up because of the witch's curse. She even put a blanket on him. It was more than obvious that she was really proud. Wasn't it warm? While she was doing her best to be as friendly as possible, he suddenly asks her who was she? And even more, why was she suddenly acting like she was his friend? Enough with this act. An act? What was he talking about? She was not acting. He wanted to know what was she really trying to pull. She was not trying to pull anything, she was actually startled by this reaction. The boy got angrier and angrier, his ears even popped out. She can't let him turn into a panther again. She starts screaming, saying that she really came there to help him. She was not going to torment him anymore. After a second of silence, he said that she was way too suspicious. Again, grabbing her by the hand, he tells her to tell him the truth. Who was she? A bit annoyed, she says that she was just Daisy, and even more, he was hurting her wrist. Seeing this reaction annoyed him even more. Even so, at the end, he just flicks away her hand and looks away. A bit surprised by this, she ends up falling onto the floor. Her eyes were tearing up. That actually hurt. She gets up angry, telling him to apologize to her. What? Apologize? What was she on about? It was true that she's been horrible to him, but she helped him just now. How could he bite the hand that brings him bread? First of all, she meant bite the hand that feeds you. Get it right. Hearing this reply, she was perplexed. She didn't know how to react. Also, even more, he never asked her to help him. She basically chose to help him on her own accord. Everything he was saying was true. That was so annoying. But at least he could say thank you to the person that helped him. Well, it was not like the stuff she's done so far disappeared just because she was helping him now. Well, he was right, so she apologized once again. She didn't want to do those things either. She didn't mean to torment him. The sad reality was that she had no choice. If she didn't torture him, the witch would hit her and hurt her as well. He was a bit surprised to hear all this, but she was not going to live like that anymore. She doesn't want to harm other people in order to avoid getting hurt herself. That was just not right. Also, even more, just because she hurt him, that doesn't mean that she won't get hurt. Even though she tortured him in order to be loved by the witch, she still wouldn't love her. Maybe she left her alive because she was useful, but even when she cried out for mercy, she still hurt her. In the end, she wasn't killed, but it didn't feel like she was really living either. A life of being neither dead nor alive. That is how Dionel thought of his own life. Kalia found out that Daisy was a Lutkelna. This happened much later after adopting her. Lutkelnas have massive amounts of either magical energy or holy power. Even so, they don't know how to use magic or heal people. They are treated as useless and selfish beings and are criticized by everyone. There was no way that Kalia would treat a Lutkelna well when no one would do so. On top of that, Kalia brought Daisy to her home as a test subject to learn how to extract magical energy. But there was no way for Dionel to know about all of this. Daisy was merely someone that harassed him, even though she was actually living a life that was similar to his. This must be probably a shock to him. He was probably way too stressed by this as well. Dionel suddenly falls onto the ground, calling her a liar. She was not lying. She wanted him to know that she has been suffering just like him all this time. Even more angry, he asks her if she thought that he was going to fall for such a trick. Well, her prediction was right, but now he knew that she was in the same situation as him. So she must have succeeded in winning some of his favor to some extent, right? Well, for now, no. He started screaming at her, telling her to get lost. Nope. She failed. A bit scared, she tells him that she will get out of there. But even so, she puts something on the ground telling him to use this ointment after she left. She'd better get out of there before he completely turns into a beast once again. Outside, Cerberus was waiting for her. She asks him if he could take her back to the tower, and the dog barks. A second later, he starts sprinting towards the tower with her screaming. Quickly after, the two other animals follow them as well. Back in the cabin, Dionel was getting more and more disappointed. In reality, he didn't want her to go. In reality, he didn't want her to leave him alone again. After showing a moment of weakness, he realized that this was wrong. She was the witch's daughter, no matter how much she's been tortured by the witch. She didn't have to live in an abandoned house like he did. Also, unlike him, she must have plenty of medicine as well. He takes one more second to look at the ointment and then he decides to toss it away. But in reality, to be honest, he was glad to see her. This was the first time when someone came to him first just to talk with him. And even more, she looked really happy to do so. He gets up and starts to slowly limp towards the fire. All these thoughts in his mind were all because of this fire. It was so warm and comforting. He just couldn't help but to give in. The next day was a sunny day as well. This must have been the library. She used to only stay in the highest room because Kalia was keeping an eye on her at all times. It was so nice to be able to roam about like this. It must be really true that Kalia's magic library was one of the best in the empire. This looked like the room of someone that studies very hard. Come to think of it, why did Kalia become a witch and not a magician? Unlike magicians, witches are treated very poorly. A second later, she realized that she found what she was looking for. Basics of pharmacology. She knew that there had to be something like that in there. Daisy can't use magic because she was a Lutkelna, but she could make medicine. She could make medicine with this and treat the prince. While looking through the book, she notices a very peculiar map. A map? And even more, it seems to be in the area around the Tower of Fog. The Great Fairy Spring was something like that in the original novel. While inspecting the map, she had a sudden idea. Since she got the map, why not go on an adventure today? Coincidentally, Kalia wasn't in the tower right now, so this was her chance. She'd better ask the Cerberuses to come with her as well. The moment she sees them, she jumps, getting ready to hug them. Even more, the monster does the same. What's better than a dog? 3 dogs. While hugging, she asks him if he slept well, wasn't he cold? As a reply, the dogs started to whine, showing that they were happy to see her as well. Right, it would be nice for him to have a name as well, right? The dog replies by barking, showing that he agreed. While literally dangling on top of the monster, she started to think for a name. Okay, how about this? From now on, their names will be Zero, Barrow, and Russ. While talking with them, she noticed something interesting. All of them had blood on their mouths. They were so dirty. Do they usually hunt for themselves? The dog barks almost like saying yes. With puppy eyes, she asks them if they could get some meat for her and the prince as well. Without hesitating, the dogs nod and then they turn away. What? They were going right now. She was happy, but she really hoped that they won't get hurt. Bero was going to stay behind with her. He wanted to make sure that the little girl will be safe. Clenching her fist, she starts talking. Alright then. She was all done getting ready for her adventure. She got on top of Bero and just started to wander in the forest. She couldn't help but laugh a bit, remembering that she was almost like a princess from a movie. A second later, the dogs suddenly stopped moving and started to bark. Noticing this, she asked them what was wrong. While raising her head, she notices something unusual. It was a campsite. Someone must be staying there. Even so, it seemed like no one was there right now. Why would someone come into an abandoned forest in the first place? She asks Bero to let her down there. She wanted to look around if there was anything useful. Light as snow, she gets off the dog and starts walking towards the camp. She was going to take this and this and this. She was ecstatic. What a find. Out of the blue, the dog brings her a bag. Where did he find this? Even more, what was this? What kind of treasure did he find? The bag had a compass, a quill, a knife, some sort of a bag and some paper. She happily prouds the dog, telling him that he did such a good job. Bero was proud. She should give this folding knife to the prince. She was sure that he will be needing it quite often in the abandoned house. Alright then, should they go and see him now? Zero and Russ were probably done hunting anyway. Also, they could stop by the waterfall on their way there and fill the water bottle as well. When she got back to the prince, she was welcomed by the same "get out of here." She was trembling. She didn't expect this reaction again. Come on, wasn't this a bit too much? How could he start turning into a panther the moment he sees her? The boy asks her what kind of ulterior motive did she have to come there this time. While walking towards him, she tells him to calm down. As usual, the boy was getting angrier and angrier. She got a bit startled. What did he say? This kid was mumbling again. She was a bit fearful for her safety. Before anything happened, she noticed the ointment that was just standing on the floor. She completely forgets about being scared and starts scolding him. Did he not use the ointment she gave him yesterday? She told him to use it. Of course, he was a bit confused. Was she scolding him right now? This tiny kid was just telling him off. In the meantime, it started to rain outside. A bit annoyed, she leans down and grabs the ointment. Without hesitating, she goes in front of him and just stares at him. Even more, she yells at him, telling him to give her his hand. A bit confused, he actually gave her his hand. What was she doing? Being a total drama queen, she tells him that he must put this ointment like this. And even more, after doing so, it will heal real quick. He was confused and disgusted. What in the world was she doing to him? She was doing something weird again, wasn't she? No, it was not weird. He even got better. She was right. His wound was completely healed now. She was so proud hearing that. See, she was not evil. This is the witch's ointment, so it was highly effective. Wait a second, this was her ointment? Yep, she stole it from her. She stole it. Laughing a bit, she tells him that there was no way that she would give her something that nice. She doesn't even care if her wounds become infected. He couldn't believe her that she wasn't treated even when her wounds got infected. At the end of the day, he realized that she was no different from him. Well, that was right. In reality, that didn't happen since she entered Daisy's body, but it was true that Daisy's wounds really did become infected before. Even more, she tells him that she could steal more ointments, so he better use this as much as he needed. He better don't be stingy with it. A bit annoyed, he replied by saying that he doesn't want to use the ointment that woman made. She instantly asked him what kind of nonsense was that. The fact that this was the witch's ointment was all the more reason to use a lot of it. Imagine how angry she'll be when she finds out that people stole and used her ointment. Even more, the people who used it were her and him, the people that she hates. She bet that she will be so mad. Seeing how giddy she was, it actually made him smile a bit. Even more, laughing a bit, he says, "Alright, I'll make sure to use a bunch of this stuff." And there it was. She saw it for the first time. The prince just smiled. Dude, look at how cute this manga is. I love the drawing style, it's so cute. Even more, she tells him that she prepared something else for him, something special. She casually opens the door to take a dead animal from Cerberus. It was meat. This was today's lunch. This was indeed something so special that he couldn't even think of declining. She was trying to move it over there, right? Yep, she knew that he would like it. She was sure that he will realize that someone who gives him food is a good person. Remembering that she had one more thing to give him, she starts talking with him. She brought this to him as well. It was a bottle of water. A bit confused, he asked what was this. It was water. It was clean water she brought from a waterfall. She will bring him lots of yummy foods from now on. Also, she was going to bring him clean water every day. She will also light him a fire so he won't get scared. She wasn't going to ask him to trust her yet, but she just hoped that he would wait and see what she will do. Won't that be alright? A bit taken aback, he starts talking with her. Before what he said what he wanted to say, he suddenly stops. Does she know how to butcher an antelope? Well, she doesn't. Then how does she expect him to make something delicious when she didn't even know how to do that? Panicking a bit, she says that she will still bring him yummy things. While saying that, she realized something that terrified her. Was he planning to butcher that thing right there? Of course, how would she plan to eat it if he won't butcher it? Panicking even more, she says that, well, that was true, but he waves at her, saying that if she was scared, she could go outside and play with the dogs. But doesn't he need any help? He just looked at her and she realized that she was being annoying. A bit annoyed, she turns around, saying that he could have been nicer about it. Before she leaves, she realized that she also brought a knife. She turns around, telling him that she had something else to give him. Of course, she saw something that she didn't want to see. His Highness was already full of blood. There was a second of silence before the storm. She screamed so loud that you could hear it from miles away. The prince started to panic. She was so loud. That's why he told her to go over there. What the fuck is this art style? She had no intention to calm down. The boy was getting more and more angry by the second. His ears and tail popped out from the stress. Realizing what she just did, she suddenly covered her mouth. Was he turning into a panther again? She quickly apologizes, saying that she won't shout anymore. Still a bit annoyed, he says fine, then be quiet. Just like every cat, because he was annoyed, he was tapping his tail. And just like every person seeing a tail in front of them, she wanted to pet it. So because of that, she starts to slowly go towards him. She catches his tail out of the blue, which absolutely startled him. She was in bliss. It was so soft. Also, it felt so cool, and without hesitating, she started to play with it. A second later, she could clearly hear the annoyed voice of the prince. What was she doing? She jumps back up like she was on springs. She quickly apologized, saying that she didn't even realize what she was doing. She started to panic, looking left and right, apologizing again and again. Out of nowhere, he decides to just pet her. Even more, he tells her that it was all right. He just wanted her to calm down, that was all. This was the first time when the prince was actually kind to her, so of course she was a bit confused, but in the end she just said okay. Seeing how happy she was, he turns around, saying that she had something else to give him. If so, leave it there and just go outside. With a bright smile on her face, she instantly agrees. Did she just succeed in befriending the male protagonist? The room was so warm because of the fire. And even more, this time you could feel the smell of meat in the room. They were literally making barbecue. Out of the blue, the prince starts talking with her. How was she able to make fire every time? She didn't even hear him. She was drooling, looking at the meat. A whole 5 seconds later, she realized that he said something. A bit annoyed, he says never mind. No, wait, the fire. He asked how she lit the fireplace, right? Actually, Cerberuses can breathe fire from their mouths. Ross has the weakest fire of them all. So she got his help every time when she needed to light up the fireplace. He was a bit surprised. She was better than he was. He can't even light a fire because of the witch's curse. She knew that he was right and she felt sorry for him now. Out of the spells that Kalia put on Dionel, there was one that prevented him from doing anything to make it easier for him to live. That is why he wasn't able to light the fire with his own hands. If Dionel reaches his hands out to a fire, it will go out instantly. Dionel lived an absolutely wretched life alone at the abandoned house without fire. How could she put such a cruel curse on this child? On top of that, she put a confinement spell on him so he won't be able to stray far from the abandoned house. Anyway, out of the blue, he starts speaking with her. Why was she calling him Your Highness? He was a prince, but he was a monster that changes form between a human and a beast. Well, the answer for that was simple. A prince was still a prince. These words left a strong impression on him. No matter what he looked like, it doesn't change the fact that he was still he. A second later, she realized that sounded pretty deep just now. Laughing a bit, he says, right. While slowly getting up, he says, never mind, I can't hold a conversation with an idiot. Hearing that, she got a bit annoyed. She was not an idiot. Smirking a bit, he tells her to add some wood to the fire. It looked like it was going to go out soon. Making it look like it was really easy, he snaps a plank into two using his knee. Seeing this, Daisy was amazed. He was a malnourished 9 years old, just where was that power coming from? Even more, come to think of it, how did he know how to butcher an antelope? She got interrupted by the sudden appearance of meat. He nonchalantly gives her a stick with meat, saying that it was ready. She was in bliss. It was already done. She could actually eat meat now. While eating, she was saying that this was so good. Smirking a bit, she tells her that she brought that only to eat meat herself, right? Busted. No way, she was just worried that he would be eating alone. She wanted to make one less lonely boy, you know? What does that even mean? Blushing a bit, she says that it was just a joke that she made up. Anyway, everything tastes better when you eat it with someone else. That was the reason why she was eating this with him. Laughing even more, he says that it would probably still be good if he ate it alone. She instantly stopped the moment she noticed it. He actually laughed again. Was he smiling more often now? Out of the blue, he asks her what was she staring at. He snaps at her, telling her to stop smiling like a fool and eat her meat. She instantly pouted, annoyed. Come on, again? She turns around, saying that he was rude. She was going to go and give some of the food to the dogs. It will get tough if you cook it too long, so he could go ahead and eat it first. She rushed outside, saying that she has to give it to the dogs before it gets cold. He was a bit tired of this girl, but the reality made him blush. Sometime later, the sticks were empty. She was so full. What a feast. Even the prince agreed that yes, it was really good. He instantly corrects himself, saying that it was just fine. Look at him acting like that after enjoying it. Well, never mind that. What did she expect from a 9-year-old kid? She would better be patient since she was actually an adult. In that moment, she opened her eyes, remembering something important. Even more, she springs back onto her own feet. Out of the blue, she tells him that she will be going now. A bit disappointed, the prince asks her, what, already? Yep, she had to go to the tower to get more ointment for him. He instantly replied that he didn't need it. A bit confused, she turns towards him. Why would he say that? In that moment, it clicked. Laughing a bit, she asks him what is it. Was he hoping that she wouldn't leave? Glaring at her, he asks her if she was out of her mind. Even more, she tells her to get lost if she was going to start saying crap like that. Disappointed, she turns away. She knew that he would do that. She was a fool for expecting anything else. Opening the door, she tells him that she will come again tomorrow. He didn't even look at her and didn't say anything. Again, she repeats herself, saying that she will see him tomorrow. It was a promise. She didn't know it by that time. She didn't know that a promise unkept could inevitably become an unforgettable wound to someone. After a while, she arrived at the tower thanks to the Cerberus. Of course, she thanks him for bringing her back home. She ate meat to her heart's content with the prince, and Kalia wasn't in the tower. This was the most peaceful day she's had since she took over Daisy's body. Of course, that peace was going to be destroyed soon. She heard a voice asking her where has she been. Even more, she was dressed in such a pretty cape. That was the voice of Kalia. Actually, looking at it up close, that was made from one of her dresses. She was quite talented, wasn't she? She was so scared that she started to tremble and stumble her words. She tells the witch that she thought that she was going to throw it out. Even so, she asked her a question first. Where has she been? Daisy was panicking more and more because she didn't have an answer ready. Seeing that she was trying to stall for time, the witch got even angrier, yelling at her, telling her to answer now. The thing that made it obvious that she was in danger was the red hair. Kalia has white hair with black tips. She used to have black hair until a few years ago, but because she lived as a witch for so long, her hair turned white with age. However, it changes to blood red when she becomes uncontrollably angry. And now her hair was as red as the blood. This was a clear sign. A sign that she gave her blood to the fallen god. All of this just to gain power. She remembered now from Monster Prince. A second later, Kalia throws Daisy onto the ground. Then, this meant that she was so mad that she's lost her mind. Why were there so many hot-tempered characters in this novel? Kalia starts talking. Was she ignoring her right now? Panicking even more, Daisy says that she was not, she was listening. Out of thin air, something started to form in Kalia's hand. It was something that resembled a sword made out of red energy. Then, she will ask her one last time. Where has she been? Could anyone doubt that she was a witch? She could literally feel the evil vibes exuding from the sword. She instantly bows down, saying that she went to see His Highness. His Highness? Well, yes, she went to see him. She went to see him to collect magical energy. Then, why did she rip up her dress to make a cape without her permission? Well, it was on the floor and the rats had known the way at it, so... Hearing that, Kalia made the sword go away. The rats have known the way at it. At the end of the argument, she gave up, saying that she just wanted the magical energy she collected. She stumbles her words, saying that she wasn't able to get it. Hearing this, the witch frowns. She wasn't able to. Well, no, His Highness resisted too much. Approaching Daisy even more, the witch asks her if she expects her. Does she expect her to believe that right now? The reason for that was that she didn't smell a poisonous plant. It seemed that she's gotten quite good at telling cunning lies. In the short time while she's been away at the capital, a bad child that lies. A bad child that lies must be punished, right? After a while, she was back in her room. Just how many hours has Kalia been beating her? Daisy was a tough cookie. She must have been beaten by Kalia several times before she entered her body, but somehow she managed to stay alive until now. Was she going to survive this somehow just so she can fulfill her destiny? Her destiny of being killed by the male protagonist. It seemed that they were both in wretched situations. While barely being awake, she notices a bottle on the floor. With barely any strength left, she starts crawling towards the bottle. She starts sniffing the liquid and realizes that the smell was familiar. This smelled like cough syrup. It seemed that Kalia was still planning to letting her live. Then again, she was sure that it will be inconvenient for her if she died. She won't have anyone else to use as a test subject for extracting magical energy, or to feed the poisonous plants to Dionel. Even more, this tasted just like cough syrup from her world. After drinking the bottle, she suddenly felt dizzy. Of course, she didn't expect this. She passes out onto the floor. What was happening to her body? It was not moving and her fever just got worse. She thought that this was medicine, but could this be actually poison? But Kalia doesn't kill Daisy in the original novel. She was not sure anymore. Her eyes felt so heavy. She felt like something terrible was going to happen if she passes out right now. Come to think of it, she realized that she promised His Highness to come again tomorrow. Maybe she shouldn't have made that promise. Well, she was sure that he will be waiting for her. And just like that, with tears in her eyes, she passed out. If you watch until this point, come on, subscribe. It felt like she was deep inside of a river, so she was really dying. And not at the hands of the male protagonist, but at the hands of the witch. She couldn't believe that she was dying so wretchedly after entering the body of the witch's daughter. What was the reason she ended up in the story anyway? Was the reason really because she wrote hate comments saying that it was full of cliches? Was she supposed to be punished by coming to realize how hard it was to avoid cliches when writing a story? After going deeper and deeper, she reached the bottom of the river. She couldn't see it, but she could feel someone's hand slowly reaching out to her. When that hand started to gently pat her on the head, she opened her eyes. She could see the blurry image of a woman next to her. A second later, she instantly opens her eyes. Even more, she had the strength to get up. All of her wounds have been healed. She quickly turns towards the woman and asks her if she was the one who healed her. She looked familiar for some reason. Does she know her? She instantly bowed down and thanked her for saving her life. She survived only because of her. She raises her head, asking her if she could at least tell her her name. Even so, she realized that she was alone, but she was right there just a moment ago. Back in reality, she was talking in her sleep while dreaming. The witch was next to her. She was the one who saved her with an antidote. Who in the world was she saying thank you to? Squeezing the bottle, the witch couldn't believe that she drank whatever she gave her. What if the bottle had poison? She was a really annoying Lutkelna brat. A bit annoyed, the witch turns around and starts leaving the room. Daisy was sleeping sound, feeling better and better. When she woke up, the witch started to talk with her. Did she know how much of a bother it's been for her since she has been sick for a whole week? Even if she was being scolded, Daisy was as happy as she could. She was moaning as she was about to croak, but she saved her. She must be more obedient from now on. With a smile on her face, Daisy says, "Of course, Miss Witch." But in reality, she was thinking that the witch was the one that made her sick in the first place. Grinning, the witch tells her to do her job right away. If she was going against her commands again, then she was not going to just be sick for a week next time. A bit intimidated, she says yes miss once again. She had nothing to worry about. She remembered to pack the poisonous plant perfume. A bit annoyed, she tells her that if she was done spraying it, then get lost. Turning away, she says that she will be leaving right away. After the door closed, silence took over the room. After she left, the witch exhaled. She was pretty tired of this girl. After walking for a while, she realized that she's gone a long way, so Kalia won't be able to see her now. She fell in a puddle on her way here on purpose to get rid of the smell of the perfume. Even more, she tells Sero, Bero and Raz that they can come out now. She instantly dashes to them, telling them that they did such a good job, they were so smart. They knew how to pretend to be oblivious in front of Kalia. She instantly jumped and started to hug the dogs. And even more, the dogs started to rub on her, trying to dry her because she was wet. One of the dogs just beat her by the robe, telling her to hurry up and get on their back. They were going to the prince. They already knew the way, right? She promised him that she would come tomorrow, but now she was coming after a week. Will he be angry with her? What if he's been waiting for her all this time? No, he got angry and chased her out every time she went. So probably he will be glad that she didn't show up. She was pouting a bit. This was unfair. She's been sick for a whole week. Well, never mind. How important would a side character like the daughter of a witch be to the male protagonist? All he has to do is take care of the female protagonist. Right, she remembered who the lady in her dream was. She was the female protagonist of Monster Prince. Her name was Selena. There was a special rule in the Orsinium Empire, the main setting of the story. That rule said that only imperial magicians were allowed to practice medicine. That's why the people of Orsinium thought that medicine was a kind of magic that could only be obtained from magicians. But for some reason, Selena had the power to heal every illness just by touching a sick person. A lady that practices medicine even though she was not a magician. Of course, everyone started to point their fingers towards her. People called her a witch, talked behind her and harassed her. Eventually, it became so unbearable that she ran away to the forest. She kept wandering without having a direction. And at some point, that was how Selena and Dionel came to meet each other. A male protagonist who was suffering from a curse and a female protagonist who's living and hiding after being called a witch. What a classic cliché. At that moment, she notices that they already arrived at the cabin. She really hoped that the prince wasn't too angry. What should she do if he turns into a panther and attacks her again? She tells the dog that they had to be ready and pick her up and run away at the moment's notice. She was going to sprint out of there in a flash, alright? Still a bit scared, she got closer to the door. This was going to be okay, right? It's not like she could spray the poisonous plant perfume. Hesitating a bit, she slowly opens the door. Looking around a bit, she started to talk with the prince. It was way too dark to look around, but at some moment she saw him. She instantly rushed towards him, seeing that he was crawled on the floor. She tried to wake him up, but it was obvious that he was feeling sick. It didn't matter how many times she called out to him, he didn't reply. She was starting to panic. Was he sick? When she gently touched his forehead, she instantly noticed that he had a fever. She was starting to panic. Why was he so hot? Even so, she was coincidentally ready for a situation like this. She had just the right thing to help him. She was glad that she packed this just in case. While getting him up, she tells him that she brought some medicine for him. She asks him if she remembered the witch's ointment from the last time. This was going to help him bed get her quickly as well. After drinking the bottle, he started coughing and told her that she was a liar. Huh? What did he say? She was a liar. She was not lying. This was really medicine. That was not what she lied about. She didn't come. In that moment, the prince started to cry. She said that she would come the next day. She even promised. This really surprised Daisy. She didn't expect this kind of reaction. Even more, he tells her that he kept waiting for her. Silence took over the room. Right, Dionel was still just a child. Even though he acted mature, he was only 9. Realizing how hurt he was, she started to cry as well. She quickly started to apologize, telling him to not cry. She's been only thinking about how to save herself since Dionel was destined to become the emperor. But she forgotten that Dionel was still just a 9-year-old kid. He still tried to talk, telling her to don't go. He didn't want to be alone again. She looked at him for a second without saying anything. Even more, she grabbed his hand. She would be absolutely delighted to not leave and stay with him. He looked at her a bit surprised. She wasn't lying, right? She won't leave. Still smiling, she confirmed that she was not going to leave. She was going to stay by his side until he will get better. She was going to stay there with him until he will wake up from his sleep. She was telling the truth this time. She was not lying. So, because of this, he had nothing to worry about. She will stay by his side. And just like that, after some time has passed, both of them fell asleep. Dionel was the first one to wake up. He started blinking and looking around and noticed Daisy next to him. His head was throbbing because of the fever. He didn't remember exactly what happened. A second later, it all came back to him. Flashbacks of what happened. Daisy finding him almost dead. Him crying to her cause she didn't come. Him puffing away. All of this made him blush. He was not happy at all that she came now. He waited for a week. He even thought about going to the tower. He tried to leave the abandoned house despite the confinement spell. Because of that, he ended up getting sick. He quickly turned around, hearing Daisy mumbling about her not wanting him to be sick. She kept mumbling that she was not going to go anywhere while holding his hand. He didn't understand why he didn't want to let go of this hand. At the end of the day, she was the daughter of a witch. The wicked witch's daughter who locked him up and tortured him every day. She was the first person that lit a fire for him. And even more, she put ointment on his wounds. She was the only person that was worried about him, a monster. And more than that, she even took care of him. In these eyes, right now, Daisy was more beautiful than ever. Annoyed by this, he started to bite his lip. Okay, he will just let it go this time. A while later, Daisy started to wake up as well. Where did the prince go? She clearly remembered that they were holding hands. Suddenly, she could clearly hear the steps of something coming towards her. It was Dionel that was already transformed in a panther. Wait, why did he suddenly turn into a panther? What was there to be angry about? Right when she was just about to panic, Dionel started to transform again. She started to blink a bit confused. It was actually Dionel. Well, who does it look like? Of course it was him. He could change his form whenever he wanted. In total shock, she put her hands on her mouth. Then, this meant that the curse has been lifted? Seeing her reaction, he started to smile. Laughing a bit, he asks her how could it have been. It was clear as day that Daisy was disappointed. Then again, he wouldn't be in this abandoned house if the curse was lifted. He turns into a panther when he was alone and hungry sometimes. But he can turn back into a human quickly when that happens. He thought that he could control it to some extent, except for when the witch was torturing him. But wait a second, she realized something else. Out of the blue, she asks him why was he dressed? What? I mean, if you think about it, he was clearly a naked panther just a moment ago. So how could he be all dressed when he turns back into a human? Silence took over the room once again. Of course, a second later, the prince starts laughing. What, did she want to see him naked or something? Hearing this, she started to blush. What was he saying? Well, come to think of it, Dionel was really chiseled up in Monster Prince. Remembering his image, she started to drool. Out of the blue, the prince tells her that she was too young for that, so better wipe her drool. She gets angry saying that it was not like that, but the prince was just laughing at her. He flicks her head, telling her to stop thinking perverted thoughts and light a fire. It looked like it was going to become dark pretty soon. She was pissed, that brat. And for her information, he always ends up dressed like this when he turns into his human form. That happens even if his clothes are ripped apart when he turns into a panther. So she better not get her hopes up. She was so annoyed that she was trembling. She charges at him, telling him that it was not like that. Right on the cover of the novel, it said for all ages, and she already knew that. A while later, they lit up the fire just like the previous days. But if you think about it, it was strange. What is it? The witch wasn't coming to find her. She told her to bring her his magical energy. But of course, he better not misunderstand. She really wasn't trying to hurt him. He was in pain a moment ago, so she gave him medicine. He was not in pain anymore after drinking that, right? Well, it hurt like he was about to die when he first drank it. Hearing that, she didn't know how to reply because she knew that she's been through that as well. But now he was fine because he took that medicine. It was only natural for him to be in pain before the medicine takes effect. While he was groaning at her, she kept insisting that it was true. Also, his glare was really scary. She took it recently as well, so she was sure of it. Really? Is that why she didn't come there? Because she was sick? Well, yeah, pretty much. The witch found out that she didn't bring his magical energy to her, so she beat her pretty bad. She was whimpering in pain, so she gave her this medicine. It hurt so much right after she drank it that she thought the witch tried to poison her. But after a few days, she was totally fine. She even thought that she became even healthier than before. He didn't feel sick anymore either, right? Well, yeah, it did work, the prince agreed. And actually, even more, it healed his injured leg as well. His leg? That's right, he had a limp in the original novel. Originally, the female protagonist treats him later in the story. Was it okay for him to be healed already? Even so, the prince starts talking. Was she really not bothered by him? Huh? What was he suddenly talking about? Well, he was a monster. On top of that, he was an ugly one. Hearing that, her reaction was like, huh? Not only he was hideous, but he had a limp as well. Hearing this, Daisy was flabbergasted. Ugly? Wait. What was he talking about? He was not ugly at all. How could he say that? He was really good looking. Daisy was so passionate about this that it literally startled him. He was good looking. Well, of course, 100%. Well, if that's the case, is he more handsome than the man in the novel she liked? Novel. Hearing that, her body froze. He can't be talking about Monster Prince, right? How could he possibly know that? Without saying anything, the prince takes the book of medicine from her bag. Daisy didn't know what he was talking about. When he showed her the book, she didn't know what was going on. What in the world was this? It was literally a romance novel, with characters confessing that they love each other and kissing each other. What the heck was this book? The beginning of this book was definitely an introduction to medicine. He tells her that he kicked her bag by accident and everything in it spilled out. He was sorry for reading it without her permission. But was he like that? Like that? What does he mean? Well, was he handsome like the man in that novel? Of course, he was as embarrassed as he could get while asking that. She needed a second to take the courage to say all this, but in the end she told him that of course he was. No, he was so good looking that he can't even be compared to those characters. He was incredibly gorgeous. He was so gorgeous that she can't help but drool. No way that that's a JoJo reference, right? Saying that, she finished by just dropping the novel onto the ground. Droll? Was she saying that she wants to eat him? In that moment, she realized that she was screwed. What did she just say? Why can't she just watch her mouth? And once again, the silence took over the room. She didn't know how to continue this conversation. She just said that to a 9-year-old kid. Dionel was like, go on. Does she want to eat him? Was it alright for children to talk about this stuff? She thought that Monster Prince was for all ages. Oh wait, maybe it was exactly because they were young that they can say stuff like that. Maybe he was being naive and literal. Without hesitating, she says, yes, your highness. She really wants to just eat him up. Yum. Is that so? The prince started to laugh. Daisy wasn't sure that worked out, but something felt different about Dionel today. How should she put it? He seemed more polite than usual. Out of the blue, he asks her if he could read that as well. What? No, of course not. This wasn't good for him, it was filthy. Saying that, she throws the book into the fire. Also, look at that scared face on the book. They added a scared face to the book. Was it alright for her to throw that away? He thought that she liked that book. Well, she did, but he was way more handsome. He was much better looking than the characters in that book, so she didn't need it. She realizes that she would better change the subject quick. What should she talk about? In that moment, she had an idea. She asks him how did he butcher meat before? Huh? What was she on about? Ah, the antelope. Exactly. Did he have any experience in butchering meat before? Well, it just came naturally. Probably he knew how to do it instinctively because he was a beast. She nodded her head. Yeah, this could be it. Even more, the prince thought that he's gotten quite used to turning into a beast lately. He was comfortable with knowing things like this instinctively. Also, he was better at controlling his own transformation as she saw earlier. I mean, he said that he can control it when the witch wasn't tormenting him, right? Well, a bit hesitant, he says that actually he can turn into a beast on purpose when she's with her, but after that he can't turn back into a human. Hearing this, she was amazed. He could really do that. Yep, he's actually turned into a panther on purpose before as well. He eventually lost his senses later, but suddenly grabbing his hand, she asked him why was he telling her that now. That was great. She wished that she knew this information sooner. She just had a great idea. A great idea? What was it? The next time when that old lady, the witch comes, he better change into a panther again and, of course, teach her a lesson. He should take her down so she won't be able to bother him ever again. Him teaching the witch a lesson. Of course, she will try to steal the poisonous plant perfume. He should be able to defeat her if she doesn't have that. Well, did she think that it was going to be that easy? Of course, she was sure that he will defeat her in a flash. This was because she knew that he was the male protagonist. But he wanted to ask just one question. Why does she keep calling her the witch? Huh? Should she call her by her name? If not, then what else should she call her? Well, he had a few ideas. How about that? Hearing Dionel talk like that left her speechless. What was he saying? Or what about that? Or another idea would be that she instantly tried to stop him. What was he talking? Just where did he learn words like that? She thought that he grew up all alone in this abandoned house after he was born. This made no sense. Who taught him these curse words? Seeing her reaction, he burst into laugh. He was just joking. She takes a second to understand that he was just messing with her. Dionel was joking around. Why was he so scary when he jokes? Really, he was so weird today. It was not the Dionel she was used to. She couldn't believe that he changed so quickly. They suddenly get interrupted by the dogs barking outside the cabin. They were growling and being as aggressive as possible. Both of them got concerned. Why were the Cerberuses suddenly barking? Dionel was the first to realize what was going on. This was the smell of... Smell? In that second, Daisy understood as well what was happening. It was Kalia, the witch, who probably got sick waiting for her. Dionel was absolutely sure of it. Kalia was here and she was angry. The moment they realized that Kalia was getting close, the prince dashed towards the fire. The moment he touched it, the fire instantly went out. He even grabbed her by the hand and told her to follow him. A second later, they got behind some kind of boxes. They could hear her steps and her calling out to Daisy. She could feel a shiver the moment she heard her voice. The witch was talking to her, asking her where she was. This time, Kalia acted like she was concerned for Daisy. She was wondering where her daughter has gone. Hearing this, she instantly got annoyed, since when did she consider her as her daughter? Realizing something, she instantly glanced towards the prince. He was not going to misunderstand and think that Kalia thinks of her as her real daughter, right? The little boy was watching her every move. He was as terrified as Daisy. In that moment, Kalia realized that they lit up a fire. Laughing a bit, Kalia said that it seemed like she raised a rat instead of a daughter. She even started to get annoyed. She knew that she was in here. Even so, the room was silent. Even more annoyed, Kalia yelled at her, telling her to come out right now if she didn't want to die. Daisy was trembling. She wanted to go out, but she couldn't because she was scared. But in reality, the only one that could protect Dionel right now, and even if he didn't want to show it, his hand was trembling as well. The only one who could protect Dionel was her. Squeezing her own hand, she knew that she must do this. She told Dionel that he could beat Kalia a moment ago, But that was going to be a stretch right now. They needed a plan. If Kalia brought the poisonous plant perfume, Dionel will never be able to defeat her. It was obvious that she must step forward. Out of the blue, she starts whispering, talking with the prince. Smiling at him, she tells him that she was going to take care of this so he could just go and hide. Hearing this surprised him. Why was she saying that? Laughing even more and petting him, she tells him that she will be fine. He just needed to keep himself hidden in there until she goes away. With that said, she suddenly stands up. She jolts out from behind the boxes and starts walking towards the witch. Step by step, she got further and further away from the prince. She was going to be okay. She was not scared at all. With a grin on her face, the witch started to pat her on her head. She kept telling to herself that she was not frightened in the slightest. Still grinning at her, the witch said that she must reward her for being so bold. In that moment, Daisy started to tremble and tried to explain her situation. She didn't have enough time though. With just a snap of her fingers, the witch activated her magic. In that moment, Daisy instantly got struck by lightning. And of course, Dionel was able to see all of this unfolding. A couple of minutes after that exchange, the house was now empty. Still scared and trembling, Dionel got out of the hiding spot. He couldn't believe that this actually happened. Falling onto the ground, he could only think of Daisy. The sad reality was that Daisy got hurt because of him. He could clearly remember her being fallen onto the floor. Even more, she was smiling at him, saying that she was alright. She got hurt like that all for a monster like him. That was the exact moment when the prince understood that Daisy was on his side. While he kept crying, he decided that he must save Daisy. Even more, he got up, he knew that he must help her. He even started to rush towards the exit of the cabin. He knew that he had to protect her. The moment he tried to exit the house, a force field instantly blocked his path. The spell was so strong that he got knocked back instantly. With a loud thud, he fell onto the floor. This didn't stop him. This time, with his ears and tail popped out. He tried to go out one more time, but he got stopped again. Just like the previous time, he instantly got jolted back. By the moment he crashed the second time, he was fully transformed into a panther. Getting up, he was getting angrier and angrier. He rushed again with all his power. He slammed into the force field with all his strength once again. With a loud roar, he announced his victory against the curse. Even so, nothing happened until 2 weeks later. Somebody was playing with something, I don't know what it is. How do I narrate that? He was surprised. Does she not eat grass? Oh, okay, that was grass. Daisy was staring daggers at him, that crazy scumbag. How could she eat grass? What was she, a rabbit? This POS was just smirking at her, trying to make her angry. Why would she eat some foxtail that he just plucked? Was he really that crazy? Turning around a bit annoyed, he tells her that she was no fun. When playing around with his wand, he noticed something unusual. Out of the blue, for no reason, the wand started to glow. He had no idea what was happening, but he knew that the wand was going to fire magic. He was doing his best to stop the wand, but he was unsuccessful. Because of this, the walls got actually pretty much destroyed. Of course, Kalia was already getting there, hearing all the racket. Seeing her, he instantly started to panic. She was annoyed. She told him many times to stop steering them in trouble. Being all giddy with her, he says, "Alright, I'm sorry, okay?" He continues by saying that he will give her a kiss to not be mad. Daisy was disgusted. It seemed like he couldn't restrain himself after receiving so much magical energy. Oh well, that monster's magical energy has increased so much and it was turning really dark lately. She pretty much imagined that much magical energy would be able to fill him up in a flash. And even more, there was something else that she knew and Daisy didn't. The prince will probably completely turn into a beast pretty soon. Of course, hearing that, Daisy started to panic. The more he turns into a beast, the more pure magical energy he will emit. Then, he will be emitting pitch black magical energy, instead of the vague shade of dark red magical energy he was emitting right now. Daisy was in shock. This wasn't in the original novel. Everyone was probably wondering at this point, why in the world does Gelfus love Kalia? Even if she saved his life, Kalia was a witch that must be hunted. On top of that, Gelfus was a member of the imperial family. However, there was a reason why he ended up falling in love with Kalia. It was because Kalia put a spell on him. Kalia used her magic to make his love unchanging even if he found out everything about her. After that, she explained to him how he could become emperor, and that method was to brainwash the empress. They had to make her think that she wants to drink the honey of a dawn flower that grows in the abandoned forest. Well, what will happen if he does that? Come on, he was playing dumb. Did he think that His Majesty will just stand there and watch while the woman that he loves, who bears his child, withers away day by day? And that will be because that honey was the only thing that she will eat. As Kalia predicted, the emperor took his soldiers to the abandoned forest to find the dawn flower himself. On his way there, the emperor and his troops suddenly came across a landslide, but that place had already been cursed by Kalia. She put a curse on it so that no one would be able to use magic there. In the end, the emperor wasn't able to do anything to prevent his futile death. The empress was so shocked after hearing of the emperor's death that she gave birth to Dionel prematurely. Even more, a day later, one of the maids apologized to her. She told her that the prince has already... She didn't want to accept this. What was she saying? Where was her child? She apologized once again, but the child has passed away. Hearing this, the empress had a mental breakdown. The midwife, who had been bribed by Kalia, lied that Dionel died and disappeared with him. Just like that, Dionel was kidnapped by Kalia, and quickly after that he was used to give magical energy to Gelfus. Because the empress didn't have a son, support for Gelfus to become the next emperor grew as his magical energy became stronger. However, something unexpected happened. The Empress found it strange. One's magical energy was decided at birth. So, how was Gelfus' magical energy growing day by day? The Empress started to become suspicious of the growth of his magical energy. Because of that, she investigated those around him as well as the midwife's whereabouts. In the process, she came across something. The midwife suddenly passed away recently. However, they found her diary, so they brought it here. She suddenly died. All of this was way too weird. She tells the guard to leave the diary and get out. Just like that, she started to read the diary. She flipped page by page by page. The contents of the journal left her speechless. She was persuaded by Kalia and Prince Gelfus to assist in kidnapping the child. Then, where was her baby son right now? Anger took over her. She wondered if she throws them into prison right now, will she be able to get her child back? What if something happens to him because she acted rashly? Even more, what evidence does she have? Does she have any solid evidence justifying locking them up other than this diary? How was she going to deal with the opposition from the vassals? Rather, they could threaten her under the pretense that she was controlling the crown prince. Then it was clear as day, the best she could do was to prevent Prince Gelfus from becoming the emperor. Sadly, that was the only thing she could do right now. But Kalia had a different plan. She was going to make him become the emperor no matter what. Also, her research must be successful if she was going to do that. She was talking about the research about creating his Hearthstone, right? Indeed, if she succeeds in doing that, it will only be a matter of time until he becomes the emperor. So, what did he think about investing more money to fund the research? Again, what about the money he gave her last time? Hearing that response, she instantly got annoyed. Last time? Was he talking about that tiny amount he gave her? She clearly told him that this research was the very first of its kind. She has to start over from scratch watch if she messes up. Daisy was like, what a nice way of saying that her research failed. Okay, he got it. Why was she getting so angry? How much money did she need anyway? What, was she worried that he would be stingy about spending money on her? Seeing all this, Daisy was getting more and more triggered. She knew that she can't just stand by and watch Gelfus become the emperor. She must prevent him from becoming the emperor at all costs. These were the exact same words that came out of the empress' mouth. Just like the previous day, the sun was up and the weather was clear. Out of the blue, he asked Kalia what did she do with those punks. Was he talking about that group that fearlessly dared to try and kill her? Of course. Well, he killed them all, what else? And right as she said those words, she was looking right at Daisy. Kill them? She killed people. Also, she apologized. She knew that she made plans to meet in the capital. But those scumbags crossed the barrier that she put around the forest. It was fine, he wasn't angry at all. No one was supposed to come there as long as Dionel was there. Also, she said that those guys even camped out there. He hoped that more people won't come there after seeing their fire at the campground. Kalia replies by saying that it was fine, she put a weathering spell on the campground after killing them. That spell will make it seem old and abandoned. How could she say that she killed people so nonchalantly? She bet that it would be nothing for her to kill her. Kalia was smirking at Daisy like, what, are you scared? But an old campground. Was she talking about the same campsite that she found a while ago? Oh, that's why Kalia returned early that day. While on her way to the capital to meet with Gelfus, she realized that the group had crossed the barrier. And because of that, she returned back to the tower earlier than planned. That was the reason why she probably discovered that she made a cloak with her clothes. She felt just like Sherlock Holmes. She bet that she could become a detective. Out of the blue, her boyfriend, that I'm not going to bother remembering the name, asked her if she'd seen the introduction to pharmacology book around. Huh? Why does he ask? Well, it was because she gave it to him as a present before. He put the Asian map with the Great Fairy Spring in there. Well, it was probably in her library. Was he unable to find it? Well, yeah, pretty much. He couldn't find it. He didn't read it yet. I mean, he didn't get to learn everything in there yet. In that moment, Daisy realized what happened. Were they possibly talking about the book that she took? In that moment, she knew that she had to pretend that she knew nothing. She was just going to sit there quietly. Kalia was confused. How should she know where he put it? It was probably in the library. Even more annoyed, he starts stomping the ground like a kid, telling her that it was not in there. Of course, Kalia instantly got triggered. Why was he suddenly acting like this over a mere book? It was not just a textbook, it was... He instantly blocks his mouth, realizing that he almost spilled the beans. Of course, Kalia was quick to notice this. What? Did he hide his vulgar novel in there again? Absolutely busted, but of course he said no, absolutely not. So the romance novel that was in the back of the book belonged to Gelfus. Kalia was angry. What did she tell him? The reason he can't kiss or feel his heartstone was because he was sitting around reading novels like that. Why in the world was she mentioning kissing right now? Was kissing more important than the heartstone? Anyway, that was not important. Was it true that he put that disgusting novel in her library? It was clear as day that Kalia was angry now. She wanted him to tell her. Tell her what? Where did he hide it? She even tried to swing at him, but he had plenty experience with this. He dashes away, saying that he doesn't know, he didn't do it, he didn't hide it. Okay then, tell her the truth. This guy. He goes like, darling, I'm off to see Dionel, love you. After that, he sprinted out of the room. Kalia was annoyed but decided not to follow him. She started to rub her head because this idiot was giving her a headache. In that moment, she suddenly turns towards Daisy. For some reason, she decided to smirk at her. Daisy started to panic. Why did it feel like she was about to take out her anger on her? Getting closer to the iron bars, she starts talking with Daisy. It's been a while since she sent her on an errand for her, right? Her? What does she want her to do? Well, she ran out of the poisonous plants she uses to make perfume. Would she go and fetch them for her? Wait a second, she ran out of poisonous plants? No way. Then what should she do about the Cerberus? Does she have any left for her? Of course not, she told her she ran out of ingredients. Prince Gelfus took the last one that she had. She asked once again, does she not have any left for her to use? Kalia was getting annoyed. Was she even listening to what she was saying? She told her that she doesn't have any of it left. Smiling a bit, she asks again, then what about the Cerberuses? Smirking, Kalia tells her to handle them herself. Even more laughing, she tells her that she may end up being eaten alive if she was not careful. Of course, that was none of her business. And just like that, she went up the stairs. Daisy was left alone in the prison trembling. She couldn't believe what she heard. She couldn't believe that Kalia gave her such a great opportunity. This was her chance to counterattack. The prince had just to wait for a little bit more. Daisy was on her way. The next day, she was outside next to Bero. Getting off him, she made sure to thank him properly. The dogs were so disappointed that they had to part ways now. Man, I have to say I love Bero. Look at him, he's so cute. She came to meet Dionel under the pretense of getting poisonous plants. She also found out that Kalia doesn't have much poisonous plant perfume left. What a lucky! Before she had time to finish her sentence, she saw something unusual. Somebody was hurting Dionel right in that moment. This was the voice of... It was Dionel and Gelfus who was holding a bottle of perfume. Seeing this, Daisy got instantly annoyed. That jerk. And of course, he was acting like the biggest jerk ever. How was he human? He was just a filthy, hideous beast. Gelfus can't even do anything without Dionel's magical energy. And this time, Dionel was completely transformed. In that moment, he jumped towards Gelfus, getting ready to attack him. Of course, Gelfus had the poisonous spray, so he was safe. The moment the poisonous spray got in contact with Dionel, he jumped back. Seeing this, Gelfus started to laugh. What an idiot. What in the world was he? A sadistic lunatic? In that moment, she realized something. The bottle of perfume that was in his hands. Even Gelfus realized that he didn't have much left. She could have given him at least a little bit more. What a cheapskate. Kalia said that the poisonous plant perfume that Gelfus took was the last one. If what she said was true, then this was the perfect time to attack Gelfus. She was so excited that she was smacking the tree. They put a crying face on the tree as well. But Kalia will come right away when she does so. Right when she was thinking that she can take action, Gelfus suddenly fall down. Why in the world was a rock there? He fell down on the ground and in the process he dropped the bottle of perfume. Daisy couldn't believe her eyes. He actually dropped the perfume. She had no time to spare. She had to quickly pick it up and get rid of Gelfus. Dionel will be able to attack Gelfus if she takes away the perfume. Gelfus was still not noticing her. She was annoyed that he humiliated himself in front of that punk. In the last second, Daisy jumped towards the bottle of perfume. She was almost there. A second later, she actually managed to reach it in time. She grabbed it. She really got it. Of course, Gelfus noticed her right at that moment. What did she think that she was doing? Knowing that she was busted, she froze in place. It was Gelfus who was right in front of her. Who said that they were not a couple? He looked just like Kalia when he was mad. A second later, he tries to take back the bottle of perfume, but Daisy just dodges him. A bit annoyed, she asks him if he would give this up if he was her. Also, she made sure to call him an old man. What? Old man? Who was she calling old? A bit tired from running around, she says that, well, that's what he was. While talking with Gelfus, she took a quick glance to her right. Dionel was watching all of this unfold. Even more, Dionel seemed to nod his head. He was ready. Then, this was their time to go. A second later, she raises up in the air the bottle of perfume just to smash it into countless pieces on the ground. After a second of silence, Gelfus asks her what was she doing. With a grin on her face, he asks him, "Hey, old man, did you know? Did he know that the perfume that she just smashed was the last poisonous plant perfume?" She knew what this meant, right? Gelfus instantly turned towards Dionel. Dionel was growling at him, getting closer and closer. Instead of being scared, Gelfus starts laughing. And it wasn't a normal laugh, he was laughing like a maniac. Seeing this, Daisy instantly knew that something was wrong. Well, it looked like Kalia was right. Dionel was getting closer and closer to him. Out of the blue, he takes his wand out and tries to hit Dionel. How dare he bare his teeth at him? Reacting in time, Dionel instantly jumped back. Gelfus was getting even more angry. It seemed like he's forgotten about something. He was fully charged with magical energy. In this state, he could easily handle both of them. Also, even more, both Kalia and him have already caught on. They've caught on to the fact that she was sided with that fool. In that moment, she decided that he was probably just lying to scare her. So, because of that, she tells him to not lie. There was no way that the witch would have sent her there if she knew that she was on the prince's side. Well, he told her to do that. He convinced her by telling her that they needed solid evidence. They needed solid evidence that she was secretly communicating with that brat, and if they were discovered by the Imperial Expedition, he was going to hand them over as criminals. The Imperial Expedition, what was he talking about? In that moment, Dionel was getting angrier and angrier. Was he coming to attack him right now? Of course, he already had a plan against Dionel. He swings his wand and shoots a laser beam, but it was not towards Dionel. The blast barely missed Daisy. Seeing this, Dionel suddenly stopped. What? Was he saying that he doesn't care what happens to her? Because she was scared, Daisy was almost crying, trembling. Daisy was his hostage, so Dionel had to obey him. He wanted him to kneel before him right now. Dionel's answer was to roar as hard as he could towards him. Seeing this, he actually flinched. He was a monster. What? Did he want to see her lifeless corpse? Hearing that, Dionel decided to listen to him. Saying this, he was overjoyed. This is exactly what he wanted to see. What he didn't expect was a third ally coming to help them. It was Barrow who was getting ready to protect Daisy. And he wasn't alone, the other dogs followed him as well. All of them were running towards him. Seeing this, he started to panic. What was wrong with them? Seeing them in action, Daisy was so happy that she started to cry. Barrow was so quick that he managed to bite him by the leg. Even more, one of the other dogs used their fire breathing to burn the wand. He realized that now his scepter was gone. In that moment, while looking at him, Daisy realized what was going on. Gelfus wasn't born with any magic, so he can't use magic without his scepter. That meant only one thing. With a smirk on her face, she knew that Gelfus was completely disarmed right now. The Cerberuses were getting closer and closer to him. Of course, he knew that he was done for. Annoyed, he turns towards Daisy, asking if this was her doing. Was she the one that tamed the Cerberus? She had the most innocent look that she could do. Who? Her? Never. Of course, Gelfus knew that she was just playing dumb. Even so, he couldn't change the fact that the Cerberus was getting closer and closer to him. Panicking, he tells the dogs to don't come any closer. In that moment, Daisy starts talking with him. He shouldn't go that way. Huh? What? Why? The answer was obvious. Something was behind him. It was Dionel who was staring daggers at him, getting ready to attack. In that moment, Gelfus was more terrified than he ever was. He instantly bows down, asking him to spare him just once. He made a mistake. He was never going to do this ever again. And even more, they were brothers, so could he spare him? Well, it was really true that you have to walk a mile in others' shoes. He now knows what it feels like. Out of the blue, Barrow grabs her by the cape. She asked him what was wrong, but the dog didn't say anything. My guess is that Barrow didn't want her to see Dionel killing Gelfus. I think that's what's going on. After a while, she notices Dionel getting closer to her. He was still in his panther form. She starts talking with him. He could recognize her, right? Was he alright? Dionel was just standing there watching her without saying anything. A second later, he closes his eyes. This time, he actually managed to control the curse. He was back into his human form with his clothes once again. In that moment, the dogs turned back into friendly mode. So of course, I'm gonna replace all those scary sounds with just... All of them jumped towards Daisy, happy that she was safe and sound. She kept playing and playing and playing with them. While this was going on, somebody was slowly walking to her. A bit annoyed, he pushes away the dogs. She tells them that they were big, she fell down because they ran at her. With that said, he leans over in order to help her get up. Smiling at her, he tells her to get up. This time, something was different about Dionel. She couldn't understand what, but she was sure of it. Something about Dionel's attitude, something was definitely changed. Out of the blue, she asks him why was he suddenly being so kind to her. Well, it was because he became confident that she was on his side. Seeing her going for the perfume vial made it all clear to him. Wait, does that mean that he was going to trust her now? Still a bit annoyed as usual, he says that yes, he will. So hurry and get up. Finally, the formula that someone who gives you food is nice finally applied. Still a bit shy, he asked if he could let go for him now. She was in total bliss. But at that moment she realized something. She starts to circle him around like some ninja, seeing if he got hurt while fighting the prince. But there were hardly any wounds except the ones on his hands. He blocks her, telling her that she was making him dizzy. As for wounds, it doesn't seem like he could get injured when he changes forms at will. All of this was fascinating. He's been cursed, but he could change his form whenever he wanted. On top of that, he can't get hurt. Wasn't all of this strange? There was no mention of something like this in Monster Prince. This was really weird. She didn't skip any parts of the book either. Dionel was just smirking and looking at her. He asks her if there aren't any more things that she finds odd. She was completely oblivious until he started to circle around her. A couple of seconds later, she realized what he was talking about. He was finally able to go far away from the abandoned house. When he nodded as approval, she was absolutely ecstatic. She was basically a beam of light. Really, was he serious? Has the curse been lifted? Well, as he told her, she was making him dizzy. Out of the blue, she just straight up goes and hugs him. She was just so glad that she couldn't contain herself. The prince didn't know how to react to this. A second later, reality struck her and she realized that she overreacted. She was now basically dangling while hugging him. But Dionel, was he always this tall? Smiling at her, he asks her if she calmed down now. Even more, did he always look this mature? A bit embarrassed, she jumps backward, realizing that this was a bit awkward. Barrow was behind her whimpering. She turns towards him, asking him what was wrong. In that moment, she realized that Kalia was left. She turns towards the prince, telling him that they gotta do it now. Do what? They have to take revenge. The witch didn't have any poisonous plant perfume in stock right now. Even more, he could now travel far away from the house now. He could wait for the female protagonist after getting rid of Kalia. With that said, she started to pull on his hand. It was time to go. The daughter of the witch was on her way. She was on her way to undo the male protagonist's curse. A couple of hours later, they arrived at the tower. Both of them were rushing without knowing what was waiting for them. Kalia was already outside, almost like she knew what happened. The moment she sees them, she starts talking with them. It looked like they finally arrived. Kalia was actually waiting for them. Seeing the way she looked, all of them stopped. It was not only that she was angry, it was obvious from her makeup that she cried. Those were 100% tear marks. Kalia cried. Kalia actually cried. It was almost like she was in a trance. He shouldn't have brought someone like her here in the first place. She should not have brought a Ludelka like her there. The moment she rose her hand, magic started to form around her. This was her first mistake to begin with. Kalia's magic was aimed right at Daisy. What was going on? Did she figure out what Dionel did to Gelfos? Kalia started to talk with her. She put a curse on Prince Gelfos. Did she forget that her mother was a witch? Grinning, she tells her that she put a curse on him. She put a curse on him so that he wouldn't be able to abandon her. And even more, she would be able to keep an eye on his every move. Using magic, she grabbed Daisy by her neck. That was how she was able to know everything that she did. That is how she knew that Prince Gelfus was now dead. The sky was covered in lightning because of her magic. Did she think that she could fathom her pain? Does she have any idea what it's like to feel powerless when your plan fails on the doorstep of success? And even more, how painful it was to stand by helplessly and watch. This is exactly what she was going to do to her. With just one swing of her magic, she hit both Dionel and Daisy. To say that Kalia was angry would be an understatement. Daisy noticed that in her palm she had some kind of a plant. Were those poisonous plants? She clearly said that she ran out of them, so what was going on? In that moment, Dionel lunges at her. Daisy tried him to tell him to not go, but it was way too late. After enchanting the plants, Kalia threw them right towards him. All the leaves hit Dionel almost like they were bullets. Seeing that he got hit, Daisy starts running towards Dionel. Kalia starts talking with her again. Did she know what was going through her head when she ran out to pick poisonous plants? All of this after losing Prince Gelfus with her magic amplified to maximum. She tells Daisy that she was thinking about how she could kill her as painfully as possible. All of this was to avenge the prince and how to get back at her for ruining her plan. While all of this was going on, it started to rain outside. She didn't know what she could do. She really thought that they would be able to defeat Kalia, but she was so wrong. Closing her eyes, she realized that there was nothing that she could do. Out of the blue, he hears Dionel's voice talking with her. What was she doing? He instantly grabs her by the hand and starts dashing in the opposite direction of Kalia. They had to run away. Run away? What? Where? Of course, Kalia wasn't going to just let them get away. Where in the world did they think that they were going? Of course, the true hero of the story was there to help. Two of the Cerberuses dashed right towards Kalia. Realizing that she had to fight the monsters, she started to cast magic again. As usual, Barrow stayed with Daisy and Dionel, getting ready to help them escape. From behind, they could clearly hear the witch yelling at the dogs, asking them if they thought they could face her. Kalia was getting angrier and angrier. Looking like an actual psychopath, she started to talk with Daisy. She tells her to come there while she was still playing nice. She realized that they had to get somewhere safe as soon as possible. Watching them getting further away, the witch told them to run as much as they wanted. In that moment, her back started to wriggle. A second later, a pair of wings appeared on Kalia's back. The daughter of a witch. Her name was Daisy. On the other side, Daisy was telling Barrow to take them to a safe place. In response, the dog barked almost like he understood her. For some reason, it felt like it was getting darker. Even more, they could hear Kalia's voice from behind telling them that they were much too slow. The witch was above them. She was actually being able to fly using her wings. When noticing that Barrow wasn't moving anymore, Daisy asked him what was going on. They couldn't help but notice that this place didn't look safe at all. In that moment, Daisy started to cry. She messed up everything. Without hesitating, Dionel starts talking with her, telling her to look at him. There was no doubt in his heart that he was going to protect her. She looked at him a bit confused. What was he talking about? What could he do in this situation? Wiping her tears, he tells her that he will never send her away alone ever again. the only thing that he wanted was for her to not cry. After a second, she starts wiping up her tears. She did her best to calm herself down and smile at the prince. Recovering a bit, she says that yeah, she wanted to do that as well. Getting really close to him, she told him that she wanted to protect him as well. Step by step, Kalia got closer and closer to them. She was watching them, imagining the ways that she was going to kill them. She was the only one who could protect Dionel right now. She must do whatever it takes to defeat Kalia. Then they can just sit around and wait for the female protagonist who will lift Dionel's curse. She even yelled at Kalia, saying that they were not going to let her mess around with them anymore. Of course, Kalia wasn't scared at all. Well, sure, she was not entirely wrong. She was glaring right into her eyes. That was because she was going to kill both of them right here, right now. She had no idea how they lifted the curse and escaped the abandoned house. But nonetheless, this was the end. The more she looked at Kalia, the more she understood that they didn't have a chance to fight her. She turns towards Barrow, saying that they have to run away. The dogs were completely oblivious. For some reason, they refused to walk away from that spot. She had no idea what was going on. Barrow was not helping her. Wait, by any chance, was Kalia who made the Cerberus stay in place? Out of the blue, Dionel tells her that she needed to pull herself together. Getting out of there was their top priority. Of course, Kalia wasn't going to let them do this. Where did they think that they were going when she was right in front of them? Saying that she used her magic to summon multiple chains. And of course, those chains were directed exactly at them. While Dionel was protecting Daisy, they hear a sudden sound. Daisy slowly opened her eyes to take a peek. Her magic was somehow blocked. They were surrounded by some sort of a magic barrier. What in the world? As confused as him, Daisy asked him if he was the one who did this. The most confused out of everyone was Kalia. What was this? She was unable to move past that point. Out of the blue, the whole scenery started to change. They even heard somebody talking with them. It was a giant fairy bathing in the lake, saying that it was such a wonderful day. She was so big that her shadow covered the dog. She thought that she sensed her cute dogs around, but it seemed that there were even more adorable angels there as well. But why were those little angels looking so scared? Looking around, she realized what was going on. It must be because of that witch over there. Kalia was annoyed. What the hell was that? She kept yelling at the children, telling them to come out of there right now. The fairy told them that they had nothing to worry about. She was a great fairy and this spring was her safe place. The rule of this place is that bad people can't come in. A great fairy? Daisy had no idea about this. A second later, she suddenly remembered something important. The fairy was well acquainted with the dogs apparently. While playing with them, she kept calling them their doggies. Daisy asked her if she knew the Cerberus. Who? Them? Of course, she took care of them time to time. That's why they must have known that this was a safe place. Daisy was a bit confused. This place didn't look like this when she came before. Doing the legendary Tihi pose, the fairy tells her that that was because she didn't trust her then. She was the adopted daughter of that witch, wasn't she? But now she trusted her. Barrow told her about her every day. He said that he found a nice little owner. She must be that little owner, Daisy, right? Still a bit confused, she said, yes, hello. And he must be the cursed Dionel. A second later, Dionel greets her as well. The fairy tells him that his curse was very complex. Unfortunately, it was going to be difficult even for her to undo it. A bit disappointed, he said that it was fine. All this time, Kalia was getting angrier and angrier. How dare she look down on her, the great Kalia? She kept telling the kids to come out right now. Even so, the fairy kept telling them that they had nothing to worry about. They were in a safe place. This was always a bountiful and safe haven for good children like them. She couldn't get rid of that witch, but she could protect them as long as they needed. All they have to do was just stay here and they would be safe from the witch. A bountiful and safe place. This was heaven for nice kids like them. The honey and milk in this place never runs dry. This was a warm paradise abundant with food. All of this was amazing, but Daisy had her own opinion. She straight up told the fairy that they gotta get out of there. The fairy was a bit confused why they would be comfortable here. The reason was simple, they didn't want to end up locked up again. Seeing her reaction, Dionel was dazzled. Daisy was right, they must leave. Smiling at them, the fairy said that, well, then there was no other choice. Humans were so fascinating. They were turning away from comfort and choosing adventure instead. Gently petting them, she tells them that they didn't have to worry too much. Even if they were not going to stay there, she will still help them throughout their adventure. Both of them were completely dazzled by the great fairy's magic. In the end, it looked like with a little bit of luck, they might just be able to escape from Kalia. And just like that, we go to the end of the episode. If you watched until this point and you can still hear this, how about subscribing to the channel? It's free. Doing my best to grow this channel and do something different from the rest of the manga recap channels, so you subscribing or sharing this channel with your friends would mean a lot. The next video I will upload will probably be part 7 of Pick Me Up. That's it for now, see you next time.